Tiffany. It is super great to have you on the show. Tell me a little bit about you.
Hi, thank you for having me, Wendy. I am an artist and a graphic designer mostly. I'm also a podcaster, the host of the Idaho Pun Slam. I kind of just do anything and everything my little heart desires, and that's probably what I'm most known for, is just kind of, your show's called Whim, right?
Right.
Perfect for me to be on here, because like I'm constantly just doing things on a whim. I'm like, I'm gonna start a podcast on a whim. I'm gonna start a pun slam on a whim. So it's just, that's kind of how I fly. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. So tell me a little bit about your little family.
my little family, I have a lovely husband and a lovely 4-year-old daughter, Danny and Henley, respectively, and we have all been cooped up in our little house.
So you have had an interesting career, some job stuff, and now you've moved more into the artist space. Tell me a little bit about that journey. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I started off as a graphic designer. I've been doing graphic design since high school, and so when I went into college, I was like, well, I better get a degree in advertising, because everybody wants to be the artist, but not everybody can be. And I ended up, just every project I was on, or like a group project in college, they're like, okay, you're going to do the write-up, you're going to do the research, and Tiffany's going to do the graphic design. So I found myself doing that all the time throughout college, and like as I moved into the working world, that's the first job I ever got. And so for a long time, I've been an artist my whole life. I love doing projects, I love using new mediums and all that. But I had convinced myself that the only way I could get paid for being an artist was being a graphic designer. So it's like every step of the way I had some excuse as to why I could not just create the way I wanted to create and like live.
Right.
But now that I've really taken a step into just the art that I want to create, whether it's graphic design or otherwise, because that's still an art, um, I'm like, oh, I can do anything. I can sell stuff with my art on it, and people will buy it. And so I finally found a medium and a style that I really enjoy. And you're repping it right now, little cutie.
She's so cute. I love her with her
so cute.
Feminine style, but her noble crap kind of connotation.
Heck yeah.
Just love it. I love it. It's so me. I knew the minute that I saw that on Facebook, I was like, I need that shirt. I have to have that shirt.
I love it. I'm so glad people like it as much as I do. But yeah, so like now I'm making little cuties, and along with, like I said, I have my hands in so many pies, but little cuties, these characters that, you're wrapping on your shirt, have really become my muse, and it's so much fun. So I have a coloring book, I have shirts, I got to do a window painting for Tree Fort. I just recently got to draw a chalk little cutie for the cover of Idaho real estate magazine. And I don't know, I'm excited to see where this art form takes me.
Yeah.
And it's just getting started.
Yeah, well, and then it feels like it's just always been there. The minute that I first started seeing it come out, I was like, oh, that's so Tiffany, just knowing the little bit that I do about your personality, it just matches so perfectly. So it's fun to watch literally your personality come to life in these characters. It's so fun.
Thank you. I feel that for the first time. Like I said, I've created art my whole life, but I felt like a lot of times I'd be like, I want to create, but I don't know how to do it. Like, I don't know if I want to paint or if I want to draw, or like I try to draw something and it's terrible because I can't draw photorealistically. And so finally when I found like, oh, it can be this simple. Like, this is fine. Then I was finally able to bring my personality into it because there wasn't all the inhibitions coming up.
Totally. Totally, totally. But I know that you said you're doing some stuff with Opal Theater, and you've got the Pun Slam still going on, or now back, doing something different with different restrictions on being able to be in person in large groups. So tell me about those experiences you've got coming.
Yeah, so the Idaho, so I was at the Lounge at the End of the Universe. Mm-hmm. It's this big event where people compete saying their best puns. It's like a night of dad jokes. It's great. And it's competition. And we were selling like 150 seats up until quarantine. So now, although the space is big, there's no way we can fit 150 people in that space with social distancing restrictions. So this is going to be a completely different experience for me. Instead of being an event MC, I'm basically going to be a game show host, because we are not only having a limited studio audience, so there's only going to be 30 people in the audience, but we're also selling a virtual ticket. So I don't know. I'm excited to see how it's going to go and to just try to launch it with these new parameters and see what we can do. And then the other thing you mentioned was Opal Theater Company, which is a nonprofit theater company here in Boise that my husband, he's the managing director, I'm the marketing director, and most recently they're producing a show, I think in September, and I get to be the props master, which is something I've never done before, but that's artistic, and I'm ready to meet the challenge head on. So I'm really excited.
It's so fun to be able to bring that creative side of your brain and put it into something new that you haven't done before. And, it just tickles all those spidey senses, and you're like, ooh, what is possible?
Yeah.
Which, on a day-to-day basis, we don't always get that opportunity. So you got to take it when it's there.
Yeah, especially, so the show that we're doing, one of the props I have to manage and figure out how to make work is a butterfly flies onto the set and then flies away. So I have to figure out how to puppeteer that without having a puppeteer with a, with a stick and a fishing line on stage. Right. So that's, that has to bring out the creativity and the inner engineer, I suppose, too, of myself. So
that'll be so fun. I can't wait to see what that's all about. So on another note, I also know you've got something working with our mutual friend Brooke Lacey on your podcast basics course.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We've been working on a starter course for people that want to start a podcast since, gosh, I think we started planning it in October or November, and it took us this whole time to finally be able to sit down, do it, put it together, and put it out in the world. Both Brooke and I have our own podcasts, and we did it from nothing. We grassroots, bootstrapping, but hopefully in a way where they don't have to go through all the mistakes that we made and get on the road to podcasting faster and easier.
Right, absolutely. And I think it's so, podcasting, at least for me, has been such an outlet for kind of getting out some of that collaboration, I think, that I've been missing. I started this even before quarantine, but I know you can only go to so many events. You can only touch base with so many people. And while I am very outgoing, I am still an introvert, in that I need to refuel by myself. Yeah. So having an opportunity through a podcast to still be able to connect my people that I love and know and think are fabulous with other people out there has been amazing.
Yeah, it's a great medium. It doesn't even matter what your message is or your goal is. I mean, obviously those matter, but
right.
Podcasting is a great avenue no matter what you want to do, whether you just want to tell your story or interview guests or do research and put it together or movie reviews. You can do anything on a podcast, and that's what I really love about it. There's an audience for everything.
Absolutely, and there are some seriously crazy shows out there. I mean, I was oh, okay. I never needed to know that. That's all right. That's all right. We're gonna
Now I'm
move
curious.
on. You just have to take the good with the bad and go, to each their own. I love it. I love that people are brave enough to put something out there that they believe in. Like, I don't even know what it is. Like, use what you've got, what you believe in, what you want to say. Like, just use your voice. That's how things change in this world.
Yeah, exactly. You can edit this out if you need to, but one of the most interesting podcasts I've ever listened to was about how the industry of pornography has affected society, like on different levels, and it was just fascinating. It was just like a little 6-part miniseries by John Ronson, who I believe is an author. It's on Audible, called The Butterfly Effect, but I was like, I now am telling everybody to go listen to a podcast about porn, because it's like, I swear it's good. It's really good, I promise.
Definitely not editing that out, because I totally like, there's just so much information out there, and it would take, there's no way any of us can consume even a small portion of it in our lifetime, but I think it's a way to learn more about things you just don't know anything about. Yeah. Obviously, take it all with a grain of salt, because anyone can do it and can voice that information. But for people that you already know or like or trust or whatever, it's an opportunity to kind of dig in deeper, because some of the conversations that are had on a show like this or on a podcast or whatever, we don't always have the time for those conversations. So we don't get to know these things about other people on a day-to-day basis. There just isn't the amount of time on the one-on-one. So being able to share it with more people is freaking awesome.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. So obviously you are a go-getter, you're a doer, you get out there and try new things. What are some of your core habits or things that you do on a daily basis that help you keep that motivation up and keep moving forward?
That's a great question. I actually had to answer something like this on a podcast that I was a guest of a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I don't really know, but I would say, so the routines that I have, I hardly do anything on a daily basis, I will say that, but on a weekly basis or every few days basis, one of my most important routines is cleaning my space. If my space is cluttered or just uninhabitable, not really, but mostly cluttered, I will lose motivation so fast to do anything else. So keeping my space clean and keeping like the laundry folded and whatever, especially while in quarantine, where this is literally the only place I am at, that's become a really important routine for me to stay focused. And then I'd say another thing is, and again, this isn't so much a routine, I guess, but making sure I'm listening to my own self-care cues, because as an entrepreneur, it's so easy to kind of get down on yourself for the times that you're not working, because you don't have to go into the office from 7 to 4 every day. It's like you could be there all day and all night or not touch it at all, and it's all the same place. So just recognizing when I do need to take a step back and realizing that it's okay to have down days where I'm like, I'm just going to spend time reading a book today, or, because I don't know, I just trying to get out of the habit of working like Monday through Friday, this hour to this hour, and just realizing that as an entrepreneur, I can work when inspiration hits me. That's been huge for me. So,
well, especially as an entrepreneur on the creator side, for sure. Like you cannot sit down, and this has happened for me, and I'm not even on the creative side, but I can't sit down and write a blog post if I don't feel like it. Like it's just garbage that comes out. So, you have to be able to take those opportunities, and, if I feel like I get started writing and I want like some other idea and I want to write, then I just allow myself to write for 2 hours. because that's what is coming out. You know, if I say I'm writing every morning from 9 to 10 and I don't feel like writing anything.
You're just wasting your hour every day.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a huge difference.
Yes, I agree.
So what are some of the, speaking of self-care, non-negotiables in your life? Things that are like, this is happening no matter what.
I think waking up without an alarm. That's been, along with unlearning the schedule of corporate, as I usually refer to it. I've had to learn to forgive myself for sleeping in, because I realized I actually work better later in the day and into the evening rather than like, well, I don't know. I feel like when you're an entrepreneur, you hear all the time, like, oh, you're going to wake up at 5 a.m. and you're like getting ready to go and you're going to do this. And that's just not me. And so like for me, sleep is non-negotiable.
Yeah.
I think that if whatever you're doing for business is at the expense of your self-care, that is no way to do business. So sleep is non-negotiable, and then also spending time with my family. So I try to make a conscious effort to play with my daughter every day and to connect with my husband every day, because for me, I kind of take after my mom in that she's kind of a workaholic, and I am too. And honestly, I could be fine working, I'm sure, like 12 plus hours by myself without interruption. But, you know, then the rest of my health suffers. So
yeah,
just making time for those personal things, I guess, is the non-negotiable for me.
Right. Because I think as someone who's super, super driven and who likes to do different things, you know, I call myself I am a buffet entrepreneur. Like I need to do a lot of things from a lot of different perspectives. I've just got to. I remember me and my husband had this conversation once, because I am that way, and he's very steady Freddy, headed down the line.
Mine.
Yeah. And so he's like, can't you just do one thing? And it had honestly never crossed my mind that I maybe should, or that was an expectation that another person would have on me. So I tried it. I said, okay, fine. This 1 year, I'm just going to do this one thing. I'm not going to veer off the path. I'm going to do this one thing 100% and do it the best way that I can. At about the 9th month, I bought an RV. I moved to a KOA. I literally lost my mind. I was so unsatisfied and so torn up on the inside. Wow. Being forced to, feeling like I was forced to just do this one thing, and constantly having to go, nope, course correct, nope, like I felt like I was just trapped in this dinghy out in the middle of all of this opportunity. Right. It was just kind of crazy. So I get that. I want to do a little bit of this and I want to do a little bit of that. Yeah. That's my entrepreneurial buffet. And that doesn't have to make sense to anyone else.
No, exactly. I really love that phrase. I'm going to steal that from you, because that's exactly how I do my thing too. And like something that I've had to really embrace is letting go of projects when they've run their course. So in 2017, which I don't know when I met you. Was it that long ago? I thought it was.
Probably about that time.
Yeah. So in 2017, I had a t-shirt company called Idaho Proud, and it was just Idaho t-shirts. Okay. So I did that for about a year, and then I was like, all right, it's run its course. I'm done. Like, I just went on permanent hiatus and, let the URLs expire and whatever. And I was just ready to move on. And I think that in entrepreneurship, there's a lot of stigma around walking away from something because you don't want to look like a failure. Absolutely. You don't want to look like you weren't committed enough to your idea. But all of that shame and all of that stigma, like, you just have to let it go if your muse is pulling you somewhere else. So For example, me working on podcasting basics is kind of pulling me out of my own podcast, the Body Story podcast, and I'm having a hard time like admitting that, but I still feel like, because I still feel like there's a lot of value in that podcast and I do want to continue it, but where my energy is just in like writing content for podcasting basics, or it's just elsewhere right now.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that something like the Body Story podcast, which is, I think changed perspective for a whole lot of people, and has had some seriously real value. It still has to come from a place of inspiration. It's just like we were talking about earlier. Like if you say, I have to do this because I've already started it, not I have to do this because I'm inspired to do it. It doesn't come from the right kind of energy, so it won't have the right kind of impact. So
exactly.
You need to take a break. You take a break, and you can always come back to it later. This whole notion that there are rules is dumb.
Oh my gosh, so dumb.
Yeah, I was at a training for the last 4 days. Today is Monday. Today's the day I'm supposed to wrap up editing on my video, send it to the transcriptionist, like do everything so that it can come out on Wednesday. And I said, nope. I don't feel like it this week. I just don't care. I've got other things that I want to do. Yeah. I've got a suitcase full of dirty clothes. I just can't. And if I was to force it, it would just be garbage.
Yeah, and the thing that gets me through times like that where I'm like, oh, well, I already said I was going to do this, or people are expecting it to come out on Wednesday. I remind myself that, like, every time I watch a late night show and they're like, and we're off next week, like, that's the first time I'm hearing about it. Like, when they have an off week, I never hear about it until it's time for the off week. And so I try to keep that in mind when it comes to, like, releasing my episodes, for example. It's like, okay, I said something was going to come out every Friday, but if 2 Fridays in a row, like, my editor's been sick for 2 weeks, and, like, if I can't get an episode out, it's fine. I can just say, like, hey, no new episode this week. Oh, that's it. Like, I don't owe anybody anything, so.
Yes. No one anything. It's awesome. So what are some of the things that you do? Because, even though we're trying to, make sure that we're listening to self-care, obviously entrepreneurship does require some type of discipline to stay focused. What, how do you drum up that discipline on a regular basis?
Sometimes I don't. I think it's mostly, I hate to bring it back to self-care, but realizing what I need in order to stay disciplined. So, for example, last week, I was just like, I can't bring myself to work. I can't do it. And it was like 3 or 4 days where I was like, I just can't drum up the energy and the motivation. And really all it was that I needed to eat a little better so I had the energy. So, green foods, like in the diet, all of that stuff. So that really helped. And so when it comes down to discipline, though, like, I like having accountability partners. That really helps me out a lot. And so what that looks like in quarantine is just, Zoom calls, like every few days, I guess. And rotating my workspace, that also helps. So if I find that I'm feeling not drawn to working or, like, harnessing in that discipline, it's usually because I just need to, like, change my atmosphere and then start. Because as soon as I start something, like, I can get into it and power things out and be really disciplined. It's usually the starting that I need to do. So just making sure I'm creating an environment where I want to start. And then I can...
I love that. I think that that's true for almost all of us entrepreneurs. We just, especially if we know that there's a big project and you know it's going to be valuable and you really want to do it, you're like, the amount of work that this is about to take is so overwhelming. Like, do I really want to do this? Is that
I know. That's when I usually, like, and that's why it's good to have so many different projects going on, because if you don't want to work on that, but you still want to be productive, like, you're like, okay, well, I could write this thing, or I can put this thing together, or work for this client's project. That's what I like having. It's like, I have enough on my plate that I'm not overwhelmed, but that I can pick and choose depending on where my inspiration is right now.
Right.
So, because sometimes you want to be strategic, sometimes you want to be creative, and like, you got to feel it out. You got to play to your strengths in the moment.
I absolutely agree. So out of all the things that you're working on, what's your favorite right now?
Oh,
it's so hard.
It is very hard. I've been really enjoying figuring out the marketing process behind things like Podcasting Basics, or like My Little Cuties. That's a whole different thing. So like Podcasting Basics is a course, and that marketing looks very different from like marketing a t-shirt or a coloring book. And so I don't know, I just really love like learning how to funnel this, and what's a good upsell for that, and how do you write the copy for this thing. And I know that that's not everybody's cup of tea, but for me, it's been so fun to just dabble and learn and figure out how to optimize things.
Yeah, so. I totally get it. It's almost, that kind of stuff for me is almost like a puzzle, and I'm definitely a puzzle girl. I'm like,
Me too.
Okay, so if this piece goes with this piece, and this creates this space,
yes, exactly.
What we can do here.
Speaking of puzzles, I'm gonna derail for a quick second to say that during quarantine, I did a 1,000-piece puzzle in 24 hours.
Oh my gosh. 1,000.
Talk about discipline. Yes. And it not only 1,000 pieces, but it was like one of those picture mosaic puzzles. So teeny tiny screenshots built up the whole thing. And then I was like, I think I have a problem. A puzzle problem.
This is not good. This is not good. We had a 10-piece puzzle on our table for the longest time, and we got most of it done. We did most of it as a family. Like our older kids had come over and started it with us and stuff. And then it got to where it was the only pieces left were sky, and I was like, yeah, I'm good. Like, I'm done. I have zero interest in finishing this puzzle. Like, I literally don't care.
Sky is the worst part of any puzzle, for sure.
I know. It's terrible. It was terrible. It's like, I don't want to do it. So it has never been finished. That's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. I also didn't start another one. I'm like, well, if I'm not going to finish, I'm not going to start. So let's find something else to do.
When I was in college, I believe, if I remember correctly, I started a puzzle on Thanksgiving break, and I didn't finish it until Christmas break when I went home again, and my grandma made sure that the incomplete puzzles stayed on the kitchen table for that whole month that I was not there.
Oh, that's so sweet. She's
and
like, no, Tiffany's coming back. She's got to finish this.
And you know how I remember that is because all I had left was Sky.
Oh, bless your heart. Bless your heart.
I think I did get it done, though.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So if you had one piece of advice for a starting entrepreneur, what would that be?
Whatever you think you need to do and whatever you want to do are the same thing. Like, just throw out anything that feels not you, I think, is the number one thing I would tell people, because I feel like when I started in my entrepreneurship journey, I was trying to fit a mold that I thought an entrepreneur looked like. And like I said earlier with the art stuff, where it's like, oh, only graphic designers get paid for their art, or only some people get to be a graphic designer. I was making these excuses as to why I could not do something, or why I needed to fit a mold that wasn't me. And I spent, probably like 4 or 5 years getting to this point where I'm like, oh, I can be me in this endeavor completely. And it doesn't matter that it's not like anything else anybody else is doing. So just let go of any preconceived notions of what you think you need to be doing and just do the things that you want to do. And, you know, if you're not a marketer and you don't know how to advertise your shit, sorry, can I say that? Your crap?
Yes, you can say that. We swear on this show. Do you see the word on my shirt?
I know.
Yeah, you're fine.
You never know. But, you know, hire somebody to help you market, because it doesn't matter what you do if nobody knows you're doing it. So marketing, and do whatever you want.
Yeah, so. I tell all of my coaching clients that come to me, I said, you know, you may be a plumber by trade, but I promise you that 80% of your business has to do with marketing. 20% of your business has to do with plumbing. It's just like, whether we like it or not, we live in a digital age, and that's the way it runs nowadays. You literally have to have that piece. And while as a plumber, that's probably not your deal, that's fine. It doesn't ever have to be. But you need to know enough about how marketing works to be able to hire the right people to get that message out so that you can have a thriving business.
Yeah. And be willing to hire the people. That's another thing I see a lot of, is people are hesitant to buy into even like a Facebook ad or just a social media manager even. You know, those expenses seem extraneous and they seem, you know, maybe overpriced for what you're used to or whatever you're looking for, but it's so worth it, because marketing is the number one thing that is going to get you more money in your door. So I'm just passionate about it. I think I spend the majority of my working day on social media, and I'm not just like mindlessly scrolling. I'm intentionally using it to, you know, sell my stuff, to build relationships with people that want to align with me in business, and it's worth it. Just find like, if that's not you, find somebody that likes to do it, because it's worth it for your business. So
absolutely, because it goes back to the very core of your business, your brand, what, you know, how people see you. It's just super, super, super important.
Yeah, right?
Yes, absolutely. So where can everyone find you and your Moon Baby Arts?
Well, they could go to moonbabyarts.com. That site is up and live, and that's kind of a catch-all for all of my little endeavors. So whether you're looking for the Pun Slam or the Body Story podcast or getting some graphic design work done, you'll find it all on one page, and it's all right there. And you'll see me most often on Instagram at Body Story Podcast. That's where I kind of post my most inner workings, as well as, you know, important body positive stuff. So those are the places I dwell most often.
That's awesome. And my last question, how do you give back?
Oh boy. Oh man, I give back through, I donate to a lot of theater companies here in the Valley, because I believe theater, performing arts, artists in general need that support more than ever, especially right now. I also, I don't know, I feel like I do a lot of different things on like an individual level. So, I don't know. I'm trying to think. You'll have to probably like cut this part.
I know. Well, this is one of those questions that I find so fascinating, because it does a couple of different things depending on who you are. Either it makes you uncomfortable because you don't donate in the traditional sense,
right.
or, you know, or you're like, oh my gosh, there, you know, I did this for this person or this for, like, there's so many different ways that people give back. And I think it's an important question to ask so that you know, or you can start thinking about that in a different way. You know, I don't necessarily donate money.
Right.
Sometimes I don't even donate time. But this show right here, this makes me zero money. Zero.
Right.
But I feel like I have felt like for a really long time that I wanted to share the fascinating people I have met along my journey with so many more people than just the one-on-one, hey, have you met Tiffany Eller? I wanted to be able to say, hey, everyone, have you met Tiffany Eller? Because check out what she's capable of doing, so I don't think that it has to be about money. I don't think it has to be about time even. I think that it has to do with how are you sharing goodness with others in an effort to make them better.
I love that. Okay, and when you put it that way, I have a much better answer too.
Okay.
So I do give back monetarily to like nonprofits, like theater companies, but like you said, like I do my podcast so that I can give other people a platform to tell their body stories, because I think there's one, catharsis in sharing your own story, but two, opportunity for the listeners to really find their own way through their own body stories. And I I try very, very hard to be as vulnerable as I can in the way that I appear publicly on social media, because I believe that the more vulnerable we can be, the better we do as a society, and the more we can empathize and start to address a lot of different social issues in our, in our society and in our communities. So vulnerability, just being my true authentic self, is probably one of the most important things I can do for others, because through that, I hope to give others permission that may have never gotten it before to be their authentic selves and go change the world in their own unique way.
Yes. So. And that is how you give back. Literally, right there, exactly like that. Showing others that they have another way to be authentic, to be genuine, to be accepting of themselves, so that they can go out and shine their light. Like, that's literally all that life is. It just gets me so excited. Gets me so excited.
Me too.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Someday we'll get to meet in person and hug again. I just know it.
Yes.
But until then, I appreciate you coming on the My WHIM Life show, and I'm sure we will speak again soon.
Thank you so much for having me, Wendy. This was a blast.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the My WHIM Life show today. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a moment of the goodness.